Okay, we are live. It is 4 p.m. on March the 14th. This is the Natural Resources, Agriculture and Open Space Subcommittee. I am your chair, Delegate Regina T. Boyce, and we are going to have a pretty lengthy schedule. I'm hoping we can get through everything. Want to talk about the bills we're going to go through. Some of them we will just kind of pass over and just have discussion. Some of them we will be taking amendments and voting out. Those are HB 503, HB 950, HB 968, HB 1006, HB 289, HB 530, HB 723, HB 983, HB 1005, HB 1084, and HB 1119. With that, we will get started. HB 503. This is the Natural Resources Green Equity Program establishment. We were waiting for appropriations. Correct. Kristen, and they have approved.
As amended.
As amended.
The sponsor submitted amendments.
You want to go through them, Madam?
Sure. So the new program, the Green Space Equity Program, as introduced and still is funded with money from Program Open Space. The amendment does, instead of specifying, mandating a specific amount, it adds language to indicate up to those amounts may be diverted or transferred to the program. There's some clarifications of definitions, some other technical changes regarding the administration of the program. There is a requirement established for converting land that's acquired by a grant award. And there's language added to ensure public access to the land that's developed or improved under a grant.
Any questions about this particular bill? So I want to be clear. I've been asked a question about this bill, how it somehow gives Baltimore City money. There's nothing in this bill that has anything to do with Baltimore City. However, it does have to do with communities that are overburdened and underserved as it relates to increasing green spaces in those areas. So when we think about communities that have our heat islands, for instance, and we want to remove impervious surface, we're talking about situations like that, communities that are densely packed with housing and have little either open space or tree canopy. We're talking about spaces like that. Delegate Otto.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I was looking at the monies involved here. What are we talking? Up to 5 million in 25 and 7 million in 26 and 10 million in 27.
Yes. So as Kristen mentioned, the bill before stated that it had to be that amount, and now it's stated it has to be up. It can be up to that amount, which means you could spend $10, or you can spend $100,000, or you can spend, $4,999,000. So it really is up to.
So that would be subject to the governor's budget and the appropriations committee shifting the funds?
Correct.
Yes, sir. And I do, if I remember correctly, Kristen, I think it's this one where the grant applications, I think, ultimately have approval by the Board of Public Works. Is this the one?
Yes, that's correct.
So for instance, let's say something does go through and the Board of Public Works reviews it and decides not to approve it for whatever reason, they have the kind of final say so. Anything else, Delegate Otto? Okay, I think he's done. Delegate Ziegler and then Delegate Baker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I asked this when we heard this in the full committee, but I never got an answer. If this money could be used for street trees, because I feel like there are so many places, particularly in Baltimore City, where there may not be a chunk of land or even a vacant lot that you can buy to use to make green space. And there really does need to be something green everywhere, in my humble opinion.
I'm assuming it does, but I would also add that there is, tree programs that legislation that we have passed in a couple of years that requires a mass amount of tree planting, not only across the state, but in particular Baltimore City. We have the Baltimore Tree Trust, as well as Tree Baltimore in Baltimore City, that has been doing a lot of work in coordination with our arborists and Baltimore City's recs and parks to plant trees. I think so, but I want to double check with Kristen. Is that so?
Well, the language in the bill allows grants for land acquisition and stewardship. I'm not sure if, so stewardship is activities undertaken on a project to develop a property for public use and improve the conservation value of the property. Maybe that would include trees, but I don't know. There's nothing specific to trees.
Doesn't sound like it precludes it anyway.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to call on Delegate Baker and then Delegate Ruth.
Yes, real quick, are we discussing Bill 503?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I'm not sure I understand. Delegate Otto had mentioned, I thought he just mentioned $5 million in the fiscal note.
So as the bill was originally drafted, it mentioned very specific amounts of money per fiscal year that would be allocated. So the 2025 is when this begins. It was 5 million. Fiscal year 26, it was 7 million, and fiscal year 2027, it was $10 million thereafter. The bill, as amended, says up to those amounts in those fiscal years. And again, this begins in 2025.
Okay, somewhere in my fiscal notes, I don't see.
Well, you probably don't have the revised fiscal notes, but you should have in your calendar, you should have a reprint of 503.
Okay, thank you.
You're quite welcome. Delegate Ruth.
I'm good, Madam Chair.
Oh, you're good. Is there any other questions, any other discussions? Delegate Tarasa.
Oh, no, I was just going to see if you wanted somebody to move the amendments.
I do, but I just want to make sure there aren't any more questions, any more concerns. For instance, Delegate Ziegler asked a very good question. Is there a motion to move the amendments? Oh, hold on, wait a minute, Delegate Jacobs.
All right, so let me ask you, is this taking money, the program open space money away from the rural counties, correct?
As I understand it, no. I'll let Kristen go and then I'll follow up.
Well, the authorization is for up to a certain amount of the state share funding would be
50%.
Would be transferred to the program.
So
this is from the state share.
Yeah, so I want to make sure I understand it. So in the pot of money that exists would be part of the money that the rural counties would be part of, everybody would be part of, correct?
Correct. Also, so I want to make clear one thing that I think is often overlooked and missed. Overburdened and underserved does not just mean urban spaces, okay? And so I think that's where the confusion always lies. You can be underserved and be in a rural county, potentially, right? And you can be overburdened as in rural counties where people, for instance, think there is too many CAFOs, for instance, right? And so I want to be very clear and very direct that this is not a kind of an urbanized program, right? Or a low income program, but rather this is for underserved and overburdened communities that are both Black and white, suburban, urban, and rural.
I just want to know.
Based on the definitions in the bill. I just want to be clear. On page 7, do you have the reprint, Delegate Jacobs?
I do.
If you look on, I think it's page 7 of the bill.
All right, I'm on 7.
So it talks about the amount of funds that need to go to 3% of the grants awarded each year shall be awarded for projects that include land acquisition. But I think it's the page, hold on. I want to get to the page that specifically speaks about where the money comes from. Here it is. It's on page 4, sorry. Page 4, line 15, I believe. Is that correct, Kristen?
Yes, and this is the state share portion of program open space. So there's state share and there's local share. And this is going to come from the state's
Share.
basically pot
this-
for
so
land
this is-
acquisition, et
So
cetera.
this is not part of the local share is what you're saying.
Yes, sir. Exactly.
No, it's
State
the
share.
state share.
And it's up to.
Up to, which I always interpret, if a program is $10, we can fund it. If it's up to the penny, we can fund it. If it's
You know
anywhere
how
in between.
you know how it's gonna go. Thank
Well,
you.
I'm just saying, look, this is discussion, so we want to make sure folks' questions are answered and answered correctly, and that we don't think anything we know, we want to be specific and give out factual information. Delegate Jacobs, anything
Thank
else?
you. You've answered
friends?
my questions. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Delegate Tarasa.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So on the issue that Delegate Ziegler brought up, could we just put in a word in there that would make sure it could be used for street trees, or is that would keep
I'm
the.
going to assume that it does, and I don't
Okay,
want to overprescribe, because it's not like we don't have programs already that are doing
Okay.
massive amount of tree planting. I see Reed shaking his head. Reed, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so I think, and I know that Delegate Ziegler brought this up. So the bill defines green space projects in the definitions, and that's pretty
It does.
clear. And the focus is on protection of new green space, but also improvement of existing green space. So per that definition, you could use funding to plant trees on a green space project, but I think it would be unusual to use this for street trees.
Correct.
And as Delegate Boyce said, there are other programs, so we're not looking to duplicate efforts here. We're trying to solve a pretty specific need in protecting new green space and improving it for public use.
Thank you, Reed. Does that help, Madam Tarasa?
I just muted myself. Yeah, no, that's great. I'm good with the bill as is.
Okay. Any other questions? Delegate Jacobs, my friend.
So let me, trying to read this again. I'm trying to make
Yes, sir.
sure I want to make sure I understand.
I know you do.
State funds, that's
Yes, sir.
20%, right? That's the 20% pot.
Well, there's 50%. I mean, essentially, there is a formula, but just think of it, 50% goes to the state funds and the other 50 goes to local. So this is of that 50% from under state funds. Now there's certain percentages of that need to be used for, parks and service. I don't know if this says this doesn't tie into that provision, I don't think.
Well, I'm just wondering, is the acquisition coming out of the same pot or a separate pot of money? The acquisition of land?
The acquisition for under the new program,
Yes.
that would be under the state share of program open space.
So it's not a separate part of that money. It's still, it's just the one pot, the state pot.
Right, and so then the acquisition and stewardship is, there is provisions in the bill on how that funding can be spent, but that comes all from the state share.
All right, thank you.
Are you good, Delegate Jacobs? Yee. Delegate Baker. Spacebar.
This is a fast question.
Yes, sir.
So if this money is coming out of the state share, how will it affect the rural counties?
We talked about this earlier. It does not affect the rural counties.
Well, if it's just one pot
It
of money,
affects them in that they can actually they could apply, should they meet the requirements, they could apply for funding.
so this is new money.
This is, So
Okay.
it's in the pot. It's in the state share pot. And then from that pot, those allocations can be made.
So it's 50% of the 50%, correct?
I understand that.
When,
But,
that-
but if we're going to be giving one jurisdiction more of the state pot, that
We're not
means,
giving
But
jurisdiction, we're not giving money to a jurisdiction, delegate. So this is
well,
what
you
we want to
understand,
be
the city,
careful of is
I
that
understand.
this does not go to a jurisdiction. There is a definition per which someone would have to be able to
So
meet
we're
that
just following
criteria
the
to apply.
definition. Okay.
The definition.
Yep.
and,
got
and
it.
there is a provision that was also added when awarding grants, that consideration be made to the geographic diversity of the state.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Delegate Otto and then Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. What's the impact on the Maryland Ag Land Preservation Program that receives open space money and also the Rural Legacy Program and DNR?
Those allocations they're not in the bill, so they're not going to change. This is going to come for after that portion that goes to the state share. That's when, that's where the money will be diverted from after those allocations are already made under the state formula. So it shouldn't impact ag and Rural Legacy because that comes out first.
Yeah. So this is like the leftovers.
How
That
about
makes-
the local land trusts like
As-
Eastern Shore Conservancy and things like that?
No effect.
I don't know.
Well, I'd hope with some of this land acquisition, it would be, they would get some of the funding associated with it, but that's.
They could apply.
They're eligible entities.
They're eligible to apply. I mean, if they apply and they get it, then they get it. So there's. Are you good, Delegate Otto? Do you have another question? Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to mention that in the very first part of the bill has the definitions of overburdened community and underserved community. And for example, underserved community, one of the things is at least 25% of the residents qualify as low income, which I think can apply to areas all over the state because there are low income residents everywhere in the state. And some of the other things under overburdened communities may well apply also in different parts of the state as well. So I think that this definition is not specific to any one jurisdiction. It could really apply everywhere.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to first move the amendments on the bill?
So moved.
Is there
Second,
a second? Any discussion? All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Any opposition? Thank you. Can I get a motion to move the bill as amended?
Move the
So
bill.
moved.
Second,
Second.
I don't know who.
I got it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposition? No opposition?
Vote no. I did have one contact from the Land Conservancy wanting me to support it, but I just smell a rat when you go dipping into the funds.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, thank you for your no vote. All righty. Committee recommendation is favorable with amendments. Thank you so much. Let's go to HB 950. This was Delegate Steins, as you remember, his director, Margie, presented this bill on a late Friday. It was an interesting bill, and there are amendments to this bill. Kristen?
Sure. The bill is establishing the Maryland Native Plants Program. We received amendments clarifying and some technical changes regarding the responsibilities of the department and the Maryland Cooperative Extension. There's an amendment that specifies a process for including certain cultivars or hybrids on the commercial native plant list. It mandates funding to hire staff under the program. And ultimately, this program would be developing a commercial Maryland native plant list, creating a voluntary certification program for growers and retailers, a Maryland natives marketing program, and a Maryland natives plants webpage.
There any questions? Any questions regarding 950? We were also waiting for, I remember appropriations because there was a bit of a fiscal note, and I know there was a lot of questions about, I forget the word already. The alternatives.
The cultivars.
Yes, cultivars and hybrids, and so.
There was language added.
Yes, I see that on page 3 of the bill, line 28, I believe.
You got it.
Okay, so Delegate Jacobs and Delegate Terrassa. Oh. Delegate Jacobs, you're on mute, buddy.
No, and with these two screens and my screens are backwards from the way they used to be.
Oh,
Now I'm trying to chase the arrow, you know? I gotta move my screen over to the other side.
okay.
But anyhow, I had a constituent from Magic that came in and testified. Remember, he was late that day. It was the
Yes,
last
sir.
day. I'm just wondering if his issue was resolved in the amendments.
Can you specify what that was?
Well, I'm looking for it right now. Magic.
I think they were talking about, if I remember correctly.
Delegate Boyce,
Yes.
speaking for Delegate Stein. Yes, the amendments did take their concerns into account. The amendments removed the prohibition on considering cultivars and hybrids, and language was added that would say that the list makers could consider cultivars and hybrids if there was a case such as the elm, where the Maryland native, because of invasive species or because of pests or whatever, was no longer viable. So
this
they
is
see-
page 328C, when a cultivar or a hybrid of a native plant fills an ecological niche that a native plant is.
Thank you.
Is that the?
that is the language that we added to address their concerns, and
Okay.
they seemed quite happy with that.
Okay.
Also, appropriations has approved the bill, the
Yes,
funding.
yes, we do know that, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Delegate
So, wait a minute.
Jacobs, hold
Let me
on.
make sure. So Margie, on behalf of Delegate Stein, you're saying that the issues of Magic was resolved.
Yes, in fact, we contacted them
Thank you.
through their lobbyist, and they seemed fine with it.
Okay. Any other questions? Any more concerns? Were there any other concerns other than that cultivar and hybrid piece? No. Is there an interest or a motion to move the amendments?
Move the amendments.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of the amendments, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Amendments have it. Bill as amended.
So moved.
Second. All in favor is the bill as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? No opposition. Committee's favorable with amendments. Okay, we're going to HB 968. This is the Agriculture, Land and Programs, People's Republic of China Prohibition on Purchase and Participation. I'd like to move unfavorable.
Second.
All in favor of the unfavorable motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you very much. What, Delegates Rasa?
Sorry, the screen flashed off and sorry. And I
Okay.
didn't know if mic was on. Apologize.
Committee's recommendation is unfavorable. Thank you. HB 1006. This is a good one, but there may be some slight duplication maybe, but we would love to discuss it a little more. Kristen, I've got my folder.
So the bill is requiring the State Highway Administration to develop a pollinator habitat plan for the maintenance of vegetated areas along state highways. And this plan would be linked to a plan that's currently established in law. In 2016, 2017, SHA and a couple of other agencies were required to develop pollinator habitat plans that would identify pollinator habitat areas. It would a plan for creating them, maintaining them. And so what this bill does is it's requiring a specific plan specifically to the vegetated areas along state highways. It also adds additional requirements for the plan. It would require, let me get their language. It would require the plan to adopt policies and procedures to encourage the use of pollinator-friendly native plants, to reduce to the extent feasible and in accordance with relevant safety standards for drivers, bicyclists, and pedestrians, reduce the size of the areas mowed along state highway. It would also require a plan for educating and communicating with the public about pollinator-friendly habitats and mowing practices along state highways. And it also, there's a requirement for the State Highway Administration to apply for federal funding that may be used to support the use of pollinator-friendly native plants along state highways.
Thank you, Kristen. So this bill, I just want to be clear, had no opposition. And according to SHA, Kristen reached out to them that they are essentially fine with this, especially as the bill gives them discretion as it relates to safety, right? If certain areas potentially are not safe to be able to create these habitats, they would have the discretion to potentially not do those or not implement that within a mowing strategy or plan. Delegate Otto.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My biggest concern is for noxious weeds and invasive species to be controlled. That could be a challenge at times that these habitat areas. I'm all for the pollinators, and I think it can work in and may be a little more costly for them to maintain them correctly. But I just throw that out for consideration.
Thank you. That's a great concern to have. Delegate Ruth and then Delegate Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Delegate Otto, for the concern. And I don't think that anything in this prevents them from maintaining the invasive species as needed. And from my conversations with SHA, and I see that Mitch Baldwin is on, and maybe he might want to address this, but the mowing for them is a big expense. And so by anywhere they have these pollinator friendly habitats, they save the expense of mowing. And yes, there might be some expense for controlling invasives, but I think on balance, it's going to actually save money. But I don't know if Mitch wants to.
Delegate Ruth, are you asking someone from SHA to speak?
Yes. Yeah, Mitch Baldwin is from SHA. Is that okay, Madam Chair?
Yes, I had to split my screen. Mr. Baldwin?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, our bigger concern, not really with the funding piece, is more we're getting a lot of folks want the sides of the roads look like a golf course, and then we have this. So we're trying to balance the approach to maintenance with safety and aesthetics, as well as like maintaining the system with the drainage and all that stuff. So we're just trying to like balance everyone's concerns. But we have moved forward with the pollinator habitat in a couple of different locations, particularly up on like Route 70. You know, I mean, it's going well. It just we're trying to balance everything with maintaining the sides of the road.
And just to your point, I think that you made is the balance. Isn't there another bill in our committee regarding cleaning up medians and sides of the road on highways? And
yeah, there's a couple of different bills. One of them's the reporting requirement bill, and the other
reporting
one
requirement,
is
yes.
the Senate bill, which is requiring us to mow like every 2 weeks, which that one had like significant fiscal impact. So.
Okay. I want you to stay on. I have a couple other questions for you, but I want Delegate Ziegler and then Delegate Jacobs and then Delegate Rupert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I also wanted to ask about invasive species, but specifically the ailanthus, or some people call it tree of heaven, which is a primary host for the spotted lanternfly. Fairfax County has allocated $200,000 to get it out of their parks. And I think there is considerable thinking that it really would help to, and it's an invasive species. So I guess I also wanted to ask Mitch if he thought there was any chance this bill could cover some of those efforts.
So a lot of the invasives, we have contracts to maintain different sections where we have weeds, noxious weeds coming up and invasive species. But I don't think this would really impact that a ton. I mean.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you. Mitch, while you're on there, over, you know, in the rural parts of the state where I am, we got a huge deer problem. And does the state anticipate any issues with maybe the deer coming to eat? You know, I got no problem with the pollinator issue at all. I'm just concerned that would these pollinator plants attract deer as well? Because, you know, there are some parts of the state, especially where I live, you know, that's like candy to some deer. So I'm just wondering, you know, has State Highway taken any of that into consideration, or is there a plan in some areas where you have, you know, especially like you got deer crossing signs and things like that you see all over the state? Would that be areas that you would not plant those flowers, or would you plant something that maybe deer don't like, which I'd like to know what that is?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to check with our Office of Environmental Design on the ones that we've piloted already out on 70 and our office in District 7, which is in like Howard County. But the one there, it might be too close to the actual facility to really get any like kind of deer pressure. But I'm imagining in those like more rural areas where we own more right of way on some of the big interstates, that might be a issue if, you know, if it's not trimmed back to a certain point, a certain distance from the road anyways. And we do actually have a like a turf grass maintenance guideline that our Office of Maintenance has for all the district operations folks that we follow, just to make it a uniform procedure, you know, so that it's even across the board.
Yeah. Do you have you ever done any like test plots to notice whether you know, there were more deer strikes in an area that had these kind of plants or not? I mean, it just from curiosity, because I'd hate, as much as I want to do things for the pollinators, at the same time, I'd hate to have to put bullseyes on these deer, you know, run out in the highway.
Yeah, I'll have to ask. Our director of maintenance, Mike, if we have any statistics on the deer issues. I'll follow up with you on that one.
Thank you, Mitch. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I did just want to, clarify that this bill just requires SHA to develop policies and procedures. And so they would be able to, for example, consider the deer population in developing those procedures where, I mean, that would be up to SHA. It completely gives them the flexibility to develop the policies and procedures that they need to, but that certainly would be something that they could consider. And as relates to the conflicting priorities with mowing, I don't think that litter is an issue because we certainly want litter picked up anywhere. But with the mowing, I think most of us know that cutting all grass to the sides of highways to look like golf courses is not necessarily the best thing for the environment. But I think that a big part of why I put the outreach and education part in this bill is I think that's important. First of all, to just generally educate the public about the environmental benefits of these types of areas, but also about specific areas that if SHA has a particular area that they've designated as a pollinator meadow, that the communities around that, need to understand that, and they would hopefully develop some pride that they have that pollinator meadow there, that is helping to protect the pollinators, where they'll understand it's not just that SHA didn't mow it.
Thank you, Delegate Ruth. And Delegate Ruth, is it fair to say that per this kind of like policy review and creation, that maybe a place that I think should be a habitat would not be a habitat? Therefore, I'm not, I guess I'm speaking to the ability for SHA to really, one, look at this, but also, how should I say, also potentially make the determination that maybe places where maybe certain communities think would be best may not be best, and vice versa. They would have the discretion, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, absolutely. This gives SHA the discretion. I tried to write it to be not too prescriptive so that SHA has the absolute discretion in those decisions.
Okay, thank you so much. Delegate Ziegler, did you have another question?
No.
Oh,
No.
I saw you muted. Given the way that this is written, it feels like, and I could be wrong and we can continue to discuss it, that this just says we want you to create a policy around just increasing more of these pollinators. And to play devil's advocate, Delegate Ruth, I don't mean to do this, but they could look into it and discover that the current spaces that they're enhancing now may be it for now until the next reiteration. They may find that they can do 3 more spaces or whatever it is. But again, we're asking them to create it, and it may turn out to be an abundance of places, and it may turn out to be 2 more places than they're doing it now. Is that fair to say? That's fair to say. Okay. And there are no amendments, correct?
Correct.
And there were no requested amendments, correct?
Correct.
I'm not aware of any.
No. Is there a desire to move the bill?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor of the bill, as is, no amendments, say aye.
Aye.
All right, any objections? Okay, the committee will report favorable. Okay, yes, HB 289, this is the Maryland Forestry Education Fund establishment. There is one amendment. This bill essentially just establishes the Maryland Forest Education Fund, a special fund administered by the Maryland Forest Foundation. So this will be, the fund creates the ability for small grants and specified training, education, and outreach opportunities for forest land owners, district forest boards, local governments, and business beginning fiscal year 2025. The fiscal note is an appropriation of $250,000 effective this July, but the funding doesn't go into effect until FY25. Kristen?
Patrick.
Patrick, I'm sorry. Oh, Patrick, yes. I see your name right here. Patrick.
You pretty much just described it. This bill did pass the House last year.
Okay.
The Appropriations Committee has approved the fiscal note with the Senate amendment. The Senate did pass a version this year with an amendment to limit the funding from in perpetuity to 25 and 26, 2 years. So we
Okay,
have that
so-
amendment before us.
I'm sorry. So that'll be just 2025 and 2026 and thereafter no more
For now, yeah.
for now. Delegate Tarasa.
Sorry, I'm having trouble with unmuting and muting. Okay, so I think Patrick may have answered this, but so the amendments that that we have that we're voting on now comported with the Senate bill. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay,
So,
that's it. Yeah, then I'm good. Thank
okay,
you.
so yeah, this will be only a 2-year program. And I guess the question becomes, Patrick, and I failed to look at this a little more. Because it's only 2 years, does this carry over? So in other words, after 2026, if there is additional funding, does it go back to potential general funds, or does it stay until the monies are spent?
Well, this is a mandated appropriation for only
Yes.
2 years. So
Okay.
after the 2 years, then
It's
the
just one.
governor is no longer mandated to keep it in.
Okay, so then whatever's extra would just be absorbed into the regular budget. So, in other
well,
words,
no-
it just goes away.
I'm sorry?
So it just goes away.
Well, yeah, it goes away. I mean, we could have another bill to extend it. The governor could voluntarily fund it.
Got
But
it.
this bill here only mandates funding for 2 years.
But the program will remain. I guess I should have said it that way.
It's what the chair, Kumar, likes to call a bucket.
Yes, this is a bucket. We like buckets. Any questions on this bill? No questions. Any concerns with this bill? Anybody hungry and want dinner? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a desire to move the Senate amendments, which again, on page 4, line 27, strike year and substitute years, and in the same line, strike fiscal year thereafter, substitute to 2026, making this only a 2-year funded bucket.
Move the amendments.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of the amendments, say aye.
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 Any opposition? Okay, bill as amended,
So moved.
second.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Okay, all in favor of the bill as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. Okay, committee's recommendation favorable with amendment. I am going to skip 530 and 728 and go down to 983. And I know we've got a couple of things here with this bill. Patrick. A lot of amendments came in, but I want to, I got pages. I want to clarify the first amendment that I would like to go through. It is Delegate Jacobs' amendment. It's on page 1. Where's my screen? Where's my screen? Delegate Jacobs' bill looks to on page, sorry, I have 2 screens up. This page 1, lines 13 through 14. And I think it starts with authorizing a person to hunt migratory game birds on Sundays. And then page 2, line 4. Section 10-301C and G. And then page, it looks like 11. They go down to 11.
Madam Chair, are we on 983?
Yes, we are. I'm sorry, I said we were skipping
Yeah,
5:30.
no, that's fine. I just am not seeing what you're saying, but maybe I have.
The amendment?
Oh, I don't have an amendment. I have the reprint.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I have an amendment here from Delegate Jacobs that I was going through. I do apologize. And then on page 11, it essentially, 11, I'm looking at 2 screens at once, sorry guys. 11, there we go. 11, lines 17 through 25 are struck. So essentially, it looks like this amendment removes any mention of migratory game bird hunting, especially waterfowl on Sunday.
That's correct.
Patrick, I want to double check with you that I'm reading this correctly. It looks like it strikes the code on page 2 that references.
I don't have the amendment, but I'm familiar with it, and that sounds right. Delegate
Sounds,
Jacobs would know best.
Delegate Jacobs, would you like to explain your amendment?
Well, the amendment basically strikes all reference to Sunday waterfowl hunting out of the bill. Leaves everything else intact as far as the fees and stamps and fee increases. And basically, the only thing this amendment's doing, Amendment 1, Amendment 2, is taking out the authority to hunt waterfowl on Sunday, period.
Thank you. I'd like to move the amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
So just to be clear, this is Delegate Jacobs' amendment?
Yep.
And so, Madam Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
So do we need to, since this is amending the other amendment, do we need to do both of them together, or how?
We'll do that next.
So I'm just concerned because the other amendment adds some things to line 25.
That's right, but we haven't actually adopted those amendments. So
Right, but I guess
go ahead.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. My question though is, if we adopt that amendment after this one, does that supersede this one is my concern.
We're going to address the next amendment.
Okay.
Go ahead, Patrick. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I was just going to say that portion of Delegate Allen's amendment wouldn't be relevant at that point.
Does that help, Delegate Ruth? Because I want to make sure everybody's okay. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
No problem. Amendment has been moved and seconded. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
I'm gonna oppose it. Just
okay. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. So next we have an amendment to I'm going to ask I'm going to ask Delegate Allen to help me go through.
Yeah,
his
sorry.
amendment. No
I'm pulling
problem.
this one up.
No problem.
This is the one I emailed you last Friday,
Yes.
right?
Mhm. Yep.
Yep. So this amendment does a handful of things. Does less than it did a few minutes ago. The main thing here is we're striking the reference in the bill. Where is it?
On the
On
last
page
page.
12, line 2, striking the phrase include state park system lands and hunting on state land on Sundays. That was the one line pointed out by Delegate Love in the hearing. She was concerned about the repercussions of that, so that strikes that. And then the in line 24 after act, we also insert
I'm sorry,
language.
what page are we on? I'm sorry. What
I'm
page?
sorry, this is Delegate Allen's amendments, but we're on the second page of the amendments,
Yes, sorry.
starting on page 12.
Yep. So page 12, like I said, it strikes the language directing the DNR to include state park system lands and hunting on state lands on Sundays. And then the second part of this amendment inserts language, instruct DNR to for the creation and funding of a farmer cost share program to provide funding for farmers to plant forage crops on private agricultural land in order to reduce the loss of commercial crops due to wildlife foraging and increase forage habitat for wildlife. So this is the so-called sacrificial crop amendment that the Farm Bureau and the grain producers requested.
So Delegate, I'm
questions?
sorry, Delegate. Does anyone have any questions for Delegate Allen? So essentially Delegate Allen is offering, while his page is a 2-page amendment, and amendment number 2, he's not offering all of them. He's only offering the section on page 2 that starts on page 12 and down. Correct, Delegate Allen?
Correct.
Are there any questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I apologize. I'm having an incredible hard time following today. Like, do we
I'm
have these
sorry.
amendments separately, or is it possible?
So everything is in your emails. I make sure that all
Okay,
these,
I have the reprint, but I didn't know that there were. I'll have to find those, but is it possible to bring them up?
the actual bill or the amendment?
Well, I was thinking the reprint, but wherever we're amending, because I'm not
Sure.
clear.
Oh, okay, we can do that. Give me one, sure, this is it. This is it. I think this is it. 29, nope, that's, okay, I'll pull up this one. Oh, download, have to download it, sorry. Okay, here we go. I'm going to share my screen. Yes, this is it. Share. Now I can't see any of you, I think.
I can see, we can see the document though.
Can you see the document?
It's very small, but I can see it.
Well, no, that's not good enough. Okay, let's try this again. Screen 2. Yeah, screen 2.
Yeah, I think, Madam Chair, I think if you just click the plus sign to make it a little bigger.
But I don't, oh, you know what? I have it on, I'm sorry, I have 2 screens. Do you see it now?
No, the other one was the right one.
Oh, Jesus. This one?
I can't even
Yes.
tell.
Now it's super tiny.
Okay,
Picture, though.
let me stop again. Let me try it again. I think this is it. Is this it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yep, that's it.
That's it. Do I need to make it bigger?
There you go.
I can see it. Oh, it's nice.
Great.
Okay. Where do we want to go first? So I want to go,
Just let me know what happens.
so per Delegate Jacobs' bill, you can see line 13, which says authorizing, it removed this. Delegate Allen's amendment, the first part of his amendment was going to allow natural resources. How does this go again? I'm sorry. It was altering it so that the permissions could be granted per county to DNR. That has now been removed. So essentially this whole section is gone. The next change,
Go to the last page of the bill.
yes, sir. Is here,
And I think down a little further.
down further.
Yeah.
There we go.
There you go.
So this is the second part of his bill, his amendment that strikes the including state park system lands and hunting on state land on Sundays,
Correct.
right? And then it goes down to, here we go, the creation of the funding for the sacrificial crops.
Yes, yes, that is the amendment, like I said, requested by our farmer friends.
Yes. So those two amendments are what Delegate Allen would like to submit for the committee to consider.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That really clarified it for me. I appreciate it.
I do apologize. I'm sorry for that.
All good. So do you need a motion on the?
I would like a motion to move Delegate Allen's two amendments on page 12, striking the park system and introducing the sacrificial crops.
So moved.
Second. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Any opposition? Thank you. I'm going to remove this really quick. Patrick, I want to just make sure that, or I'm sorry, I should check with the sponsor and Patrick, that there are no other amendments at this point. There was
There are no other relevant amendments.
Okay.
I was going to say, not to my knowledge.
Okay. Now that we have submitted both these amendments, the bill is, other than that, everything is pretty much the same. There's no changes. Is there a Delegate Tarasa?
I'm so sorry. So as amended, could somebody just tell me as amended what the bill does?
As amended, the bill strikes the provisions to hunt on Sunday waterfowl, and it adds, and it strikes the parkland provisions for hunting, and it adds sacrificial crops. Other than that, the bill is the same. Is that correct, Patrick and Nick? Excuse me, Delegate Allen.
Correct.
That is correct. And overall, the probably the main results of the bill now as amended, in addition to the amendments that Chairwoman just said, it raises those fees that we talked about that have not been touched in my lifetime, and institutes the Sika deer stamp, and directs DNR to establish, the outreach and education program. And so as a result of this increased funding, again, the estimated revenues, thanks to federal matching with the Pittman-Robertson Act, will be about $6.8 million.
3 to 1.
Yeah.
And DNR is going to be able to do an incredible amount of work in the next couple of years with this funding. Any other questions? Delegate Tarasa, are you okay? Or do we have other questions?
That was very helpful. I'm sorry.
It's
I
okay.
appreciate it.
No problem. Any other questions? Any other clarifications? Is there a motion to move the bill as amended?
Move the bill as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill moves favorable with amendments. Thank you all so much. This was an interesting bill, but I think I want to put out there that this is a very important bill for DNR as it relates to this funding and all the things that they're going to be able to do with these funds. Delegate Jacobs is going to be the proud floor leader for this bill. Cannot wait. All right, let's do 1005 very quickly. Delegate Ziegler's bill. It was the Howard County delegation, the archery hunting.
There's something weird about this bill.
Uh-oh.
The Senate bill,
Sponsor
the Senate
problems.
the Senate bill is dead.
Oh,
It was withdrawn.
oh no.
When?
Before you all voted on it. Hold on, I'll look it up.
Because
No
I
one-
present, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's terrible. They didn't tell you, Delegate Ziegler?
No, ma'am, I presented it for Senator Katie Fry Hester, who had some
remember.
other commitment. Yeah.
It was withdrawn on February 6th.
What? So, but she had the hearing. But does
Yeah, the
it
hearing
also,
was after that. The hearing was on the 8th.
but doesn't that take out this bill?
We don't usually send the dead stuff over to the Senate. They don't do anything with it. Yeah, the hearing was never held. It looks like it was never scheduled.
Oh,
But I
Okay.
got testimony from Senator Hester's office on the 7th to present the bill on the 8th.
you know what? This happened before. I think there is, I think folks forget when you withdraw a cross-file bill, it shuts down the other bill. Patrick,
We may want to hold this and
yes,
and
we,
have them
yes,
contact the Senate.
no problem. I'm sorry about that. I was ready for you to move it. Let's do 1119. This was the fur-bearing mammals bill that needed to be changed to only include fox and coyote.
Did you skip one here?
Yes, I did.
Oh, intentionally? Okay.
Uh,
You want me to go through the amendments real quick?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So the amendments, pretty simply just narrow the bill significantly from fur-bearing mammals in Dorchester County to just foxes and coyotes. And in fact, make sure I get this right. I think it's foxes. Yeah, foxes are already the law in Dorchester County. And yeah, that's pretty much all the amendments do.
Yeah, so I did have a question because I see it says year-round open. If somebody can explain what that means. I'm trying to think who would know. Let me
I
see.
think Paul Pedito was on this before.
Oh, sure. DNR. Paul, can you help us out with this one?
Yes, Madam Chair. So the answer to your question is this simply means that a person could could kill a coyote at any time for any reason.
In Dorchester.
5 days a year in Dorchester County, correct.
And help us understand the reasoning for that outside of season.
I'm presuming this is to address the concerns with potential impacts from coyotes on livestock and domestic pets and or human safety.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Delegate Ruth and Delegate Terrassa.
Thank you. And thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm looking at the reprint and I might be missing something, but to me, it doesn't look like it limits that Sunday hunting to Dorchester County. Am I reading that wrong? I see the part where it says in
Charles
10-406, where it establishes a year-round season in Dorchester County, but then in 10-410, where it says on each Sunday of the fox hunting and coyote hunting seasons, I don't see that that's limited to Dorchester County, or am I misreading that somewhere?
I like to include the whole statute when I draft in this one for just this reason. This subparagraph is Dorchester County, and it's not apparently obvious because they don't have everything in there.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, I definitely have some questions about this because I see a Sunday hunting provision within here as well that like we need to do a little more discussion about. Delegate Ruth, is that anything else?
So just with the Sunday hunting provisions particularly, but I just wondered if the unfavorables, with that being limited to foxes and coyotes instead of all fur-bearing mammals, how that impacted it looks like the Humane Society was unfavorable on this and Maryland votes for the animals. I don't know if anybody is here from those.
I remember it being somewhat that way, but I could be wrong.
I remember their testimony. They didn't say anything about if it was their big beef was that it was too broad, and this amendment has narrowed it. But I don't know if that at least brings them to neutral. I can't speak for them, obviously.
Maryland votes for animals was also unfavorable. So it's
They're not on here today.
because it's the year-round hunting for fur-bearing mammals in Dorchester County. It will remove certain limitations on hunting of fur-bearing mammals on Sundays in Dorchester, which I also saw, and authorizes a person to hunt for fur-bearing mammals on public lands in Dorchester County designated for hunting by the Department of Natural Resources on certain Sundays. And they were concerned about the year-round establishment of a year-round open hunting season for one county. Also concerned about setting a precedent allowing fur-bearing mammals to be hunted on Sundays during the fur-bearing mammal season, as this may not reflect the wishes of all residents in the county. So we can still continue to discuss. Delegate, I'm going to call on Delegate Terrassa.
Madam Chair, so basically this allows for the hunting of coyotes and foxes all year round, any day of the week
In Dorchester County.
in Dorchester County.
Yep.
Okay, and if this is for, like if they're becoming a nuisance, can't they just get a nuisance permit? Like, can't they get a permit from DNR to shoot them if they're becoming a nuisance?
Mr. Pedito, can you answer that?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Delegate, for the question. The better answer is that what the bill does is it eliminates the need for a person to effectively have a reason. So the existing statute allows a person to defend their person or property or shoot a coyote year-round while they are predator hunting.
That's what the I'm sorry. So that's what the existing law is, not this bill. This bill says you don't have to have any reason.
Or not be predator hunting per se. So that's, I think I would make the argument that's a pretty fine nuance. But it is a change in that, you know, predator hunting is going to have you're going to look like you're set up to do it versus you step outside and see a coyote that, you know, you want to dispose of. But I could also argue that if that happened, you could defend that you were defending your property or your livestock.
Right, under the existing law.
Correct.
Yeah, so I guess my 2 cents that I'm not sure why this would be needed if they can already do this, and I have concerns about broadening this in such a way.
Madam Chair, I do see that Jennifer Bevan Dangle is on now.
Are you asking her a question?
Could I please ask her if
Yes.
their position is still the same with the amendments?
Yes, and thank you for that opportunity. The HSUS does remain opposed. We simply don't see a need for this. As Delegate Terrazas mentioned, it is very simple and easy to get a permit online. My neighbor has done this to hunt a fox and that was killing his chickens. It is basically an automatic permission to hunt. So it basically just opens up hunting year round simply because you don't want to have to state a reason to hunt the animal. And we don't see a reason to set this precedent.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts? Any other discussions? Okay, so we still have to talk about this bill. So we're going to hold this bill. I'd like to go back to, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around because the one bill is 2 bills really together. And I think we just need to save it for last, but can we go to 1084, Patrick? This was Delegate Adams' bill about the increase of the severance taxes for oysters. So I know there's some DNR amendments, and I just want to use this opportunity to discuss.
Okay, yeah. Excuse me, the DNR amendments, which have been drafted and should have been sent out. They strike an obsolete old seed and shell program. I think they said it ended 15 years ago.
Okay.
So they struck this. This is on page 2, lines 18 through 29, and then the next.
You want me to pull it up? I have it.
Yeah, first on the next page.
Yeah, let me.
This was an obsolete program, and then they kind of corrected because to clarify that the DNR uses these funds and then uses it to seed the public fishery, as opposed to the county oyster committees. They don't distribute the money to them. And then they added a county, Baltimore County, which had been left out over the years for some reason.
Oh. I'm trying to find the bill to pull up. I'm sorry, Patrick. Oh, that would be the wrong bill. Where's 1084? There we go. 1084. Just want to pull it up so folks can see it. Just give me 1 second. Trying to move fast with the technology. Okay, sorry, let me pull that up. Here we go. Yay, can we see it? Can you guys see that?
Yeah, and if you go down
Yes.
to the last page, I
that's-
think you'll
that's
see the second and third page. I think you'll see the bulk of the amendments. And maybe Emily can describe it a little better than I can.
Okay, tell me what page you want me to start on, Emily.
Hi, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Thank you. You can, I guess, let's see here,
Only three.
start,
At the beginning?
sure, let's start,
Very good place to
begin at
start.
the beginning. So our amendments really are, I would characterize them as technical. What we're doing is, as you mentioned, we're deleting the obsolete part of statute, which was the old seed and shell program. This begins line 22, page 2. That's a program that hasn't been used in 15 years. And instead, what we do now is called the Public Fishery Replenishment Planting Program. So that's essentially taken the place of the old seed and shell program. Then down on page 3, in line 6, instead of having the money distributed to the county oyster committees, we changed it to be used by the county oyster committees, because the county oyster committees aren't set up to accept monies. Okay, so they are instrumentalities of the department. So we work very cooperatively with each county oyster committee, and we get their advice and recommendations on how to spend this money. And then in line 10, you'll see where they've added Baltimore County. So all of the county oyster committees are such that they border the Chesapeake Bay and actually have watermen who oyster, if you will. Okay. Of course, Baltimore County is one of those. And then, yeah, that's it. That's
it.
Mm-hmm.
Any?
Would you happen to know, Emily, would you happen to know why Baltimore County was not in that?
I don't know the specific reason, no.
Okay.
Delegate Jacobs.
So Baltimore was partnered with Kent on a big planning job up in Kent County back in 2014. And on Swan Point, there was a 5-year pilot program, and that may be why they got included in there. But you also have parts of Man o' War Shoal are also in Baltimore County. That is still not the part they want to dredge the shell out of, but there's still parts that are being planted at Man o' War Shoal, near Man o' War Shoal. That may be why Baltimore's in there. But I want to make sure I'm straight on this with Emily if I can.
Yes, sir.
So Emily, you're striking out the obsolete language of the old seed and shell program.
Mm-hmm.
And then essentially on page 3, we're not changing the way everything is done nowadays with the county oyster committees. They still submit their plan and then for review, and then I guess it's distributed through ORP or something, isn't it? The funds?
We are not, thank you for your question. We are not changing the way that the business is done with the oyster committees, no.
It's just increasing the fee.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, that's good. We've been a long time coming.
And I apologize if I was referencing wrong line numbers. I actually was going off of the Senate bill that actually passed this morning on the Senate floor. So
yeah.
So this is in line with that.
Correct.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification, but I'm fine with it.
Well, if Jay Jacobs is fine, we're fine. Can I stop sharing, or do we want to keep the bill up?
I think you can stop. I think you can.
Thank you. Delegate Otto.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just question that going to the county oyster committees and used in the waters of the county, as Jay was referring to, the Baltimore and Kent had a project together, and I know that happens frequently.
Would you like me to respond? Okay. Yes, that is the case. We still rely on the county oyster committees to provide recommendations on how this money gets spent in terms of seed and spat plantings for restoration. And if there are cooperative projects between the counties, that is between the counties, certainly to work out the recommendation on the funding.
Are you okay, Otto? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. There any other questions, any other discussions about this bill? Delegate Jacobs?
No, I've moved the bill as amended. I moved the amendments, I should say.
That is true. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any discussions or further clarifications? Motion to move the bill as amended?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Well done. Favorable with amendments. You guys are rocking and rolling. Okay, so I left this particular bill for last because it is yes, I'm just gonna leave it at that. Patrick, we're gonna talk about 723 because as I understand it, a good number of the amendments in 723 actually cover the bill in 530. I'm not sure if he's done it yet, but the sponsor, Delegate Kerr, mentioned potentially withdrawing the bill if that is actually the fact.
I've heard nothing but about withdrawal, but yes, all of Senate, including amendments in 723, all of Delegate Kerr's bill is contained in House Bill 723 at the moment. But the amendments are so much in flux that I don't know if it's worth getting into real details.
Okay, so do you want to just pull up the bill in general and go through it and then have folks have discussion and then we'll leave it at that?
I really don't think it's worth everyone's time. It's really in flux.
Okay, so I know there's several amendments. Just wanted to slightly get the committee to know that this is still out there, that it is still being worked on, but just have some very small discussion, not anything in depth, Patrick. I certainly understand your concern. Delegate Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And speaking of the amendments, I just wanted to ask, are those the ones, I know MACO and MML were requesting amendments, and are those the amendments to which we're referring? I just want to make sure that those are in the works.
Multiple amendments.
Okay.
Multiple, and there is no way to describe something solid on this bill right now.
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair. So Delegate Tarasa, and then I'll.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where we were on this last time, but maybe that'll get resolved. In the meantime, is this going to continue the program that we originally said was going to end at the end of, like, by December 31st?
Well, that was December 31st, 2020. And
okay, but then we did something that paused them.
It paused on December 31st, 2020. That was when the AG said that we couldn't use forest mitigation banking as mitigation, that we had to be tree planting, afforestation or reforestation. And we grandfathered in everybody who had, I think it was at that time, approvals before that date. And the bill, both bills actually do repeal that date, which would help bring mitigation banking back into the allowable realm for mitigation. But
okay, so that is bringing back. I mean, my recollection is after that 2020 deadline, we passed something that said, like, basically grandfathered in, or you're saying that was in 2020, grandfathered in. I forget which way it was, the bank or the projects, but so taking out that date basically says now we're allowing for these mitigation banks where you're just preserving forest.
Right, at a 2-to-1 ratio. under current law.
Okay,
It was,
okay.
so in other words,
I just want to
if
be
you,
clear that we're bringing that back. Which
well, the bill does bring that back because it
Well-
repeals that date.
it repeals the date, so it brings it back.
No, repeals the date that oh, never mind.
Am I wrong? I thought that's what you said, Patrick.
No, you're right.
Yeah, you're right.
You're right.
So it brings that back as an option, which I guess I'm personally opposed to. I don't know how the rest of the committee or subcommittee feel about that, but I have concerns about that as preserving forest that is already not being used in exchange for trees. I mean, that leads to fewer trees in the state, essentially.
I give it, given the other parameters in the bill, I would slightly disagree, but I certainly hear you. And again, this is why we're just still discussing it, because that may be some truth to it, and may not. This bill is changing every second of every day, as Patrick mentioned. I know you're laughing. It is funny. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't know if this is part of what's being in flux, as Patrick mentioned, but on page 12 of the reprint, it says after December 31st, 2020, mitigation banks may be allowed only, and then there are 3 conditions where mitigation banking is allowed. I don't really understand the first one, on land which development or subdivision rights have not been materially extinguished by an easement, covenant, or other similar mechanism. The second one is for mitigation banks of qualified conservation established in priority retention areas as established in 5-1607. And then the third one is for mitigation banks of newly planted forest in priority afforestation or reforestation areas. So the second and third ones, I think I understand, but I don't really understand the first one and how much that would allow.
Well, the
I
first
think I
one,
might understand. Oh, go ahead.
well, the first one is basically just saying that, if it's already got a preservation in perpetuity, you can't use that for a forest mitigation bank. It's already preserved.
But so then basically anything else is allowed.
Well, no, this 2 and 3 are pretty limiting.
Oh, it's an and, not an or. Oh, I thought it was an or. Got it. Okay, so this really does limit where we could do that mitigation banking after December 31st.
Well,
no.
Let Patrick
I
finish,
think this
please.
could be. I think this could be read as an or, because it's saying you can, after December 31st, 2020, mitigation banks may be allowed only one of those 3 things. Probably should be an or. It's a pretty good point.
Well,
But,
that's a big difference in whether I support this or not, to be honest.
well, one thing to understand is the in priority areas. Those are the most healthiest forests, the most pristine forests, the most valuable forests. You know what I mean?
So I understand that, and I don't really have a sense of how extensive that is, but that could be something that I support. I have hesitation about number 1. If it's an or, then number 1 makes it seem like it can be anything that doesn't already have an easement.
This is also why this bill is going to be, it's still in flux, and why we're still discussing it, because those things need to be fleshed out. Delegate Terrassa.
I think the way the and functions here, it's only allowed it has to be all 3 of those. Like, it doesn't, never mind. I don't think I'm adding to this. I apologize. I think I understand it, but since we're not voting it today, I think
it's important that we are discussing it. The
Yeah.
discussion matters. So continue your point.
It basically has to be one, even though it's an and, which is the right way for it to be phrased here, it's essentially like it has to be on land, the first one, it has to be on land that hasn't had its rights extinguished. And then it's sort of weird that the three are batched together because
Yeah, it should
one
be
is
like
a
an A and
limitation
B.
and two is a permission to do on 2 and 3. So it's just a little oddly phrased, but I definitely don't think an or makes sense there.
Because there's a semicolon after number
It's just
one.
phrased oddly.
Patrick. Oh, did you have anything else?
Not at the moment.
Nope. So this bill is going to, we're certainly not moving it, and I understand there's still a plethora of amendments, so we will continue to discuss it. And as Patrick stated, which I think he's correct, is when there is a better lay of all the amendments, and especially the ones that the sponsor is negotiating and speaking to with folks that are on this bill, then we'll have like a more robust discussion. I'm hoping that those amendments can be taken care of at some point this week as we kind of rush through the through to crossover. So first of all, thank you for some great work. You essentially pushed out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bills. And so good work to you guys. I do want to, 1, do some floor assignments, and 2, determine another date this week that we could meet up to discuss more work. And if we can, if anybody's able to do that now, we can do that. I have literally cleared a lot of my schedule so that I can do that. For instance, Thursday, either before or after session, depending on how session goes, we can do that. But then I know Thursday is also motor vehicle, which I know some of you are on. So I want to propose potentially, what is today? Maybe after floor on Thursday, if that's possible.
Madam
Yes,
Chair,
yes.
I think that not LUE, I'm sorry,
Oh.
the local government meets then.
Oh,
Yeah,
I was
you
gonna say,
you
that's
should,
correct.
the chair should probably coordinate with Delegate Love and Delegate Healy.
okay. All right. I will coordinate and get back to folks because I have a feeling we're going to meet within a week. And I'm also unfortunately thinking about Friday and or Saturday meeting subcommittee. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to mention on Thursday, I have a bill hearing in HGO. I don't know what, where
That's
I am
fine.
in the bill order. Thank you.
You know, we know
And
how
for
these
the
things
record,
go.
we have 2 bill hearings on Thursday also.
Okay. All right. We'll
We
try to
weren't
squeeze
supposed
it
to.
in. Worst, best case scenario. Hopefully people have their bills in line. They have their amendments drawn up. We can have some discussion or fights or however we want to do it. Look forward to potentially, if we can't get another time this week, look to either a Friday evening or a Saturday after session. Sound good?
Friday evening would be best. Saturday after session would probably be too late.
Okay, so we're looking at Friday evening. And we can, why don't we just go ahead and schedule that now? But I'm also still looking at to see if I'm not in conflict with other subcommittees. If I am, we're probably going to do Saturday. Friday, unfortunately.
Madam Chair, Thursday evening or Thursday late, would be okay with me as long as it's just late enough that I'd pass my bill hearing.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I don't know if that's conflicting with other committees. I don't want to say we couldn't do it on Thursday.
No.
I just want to make sure that it's not at the same time as my bill hearing.
No problem. I'm going to say, looks like we have Thursday, Friday, or Saturday at this point. That's good. Okay. And I'll work on that and we'll get that out sooner versus later. So I do want to assign some floor. So we have Delegate Jacobs doing HB 983. Delegate Ruth, I would like you to do the Green Space Equity Program.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Glad to.
Okay. Actually, you know what? Delegate Ziegler, are you interested in floor leading?
I give it a shot.
Nothing beats a failure but a try. It's wonderful. Would you be interested in doing the native plants?
Sure.
Okay,
What's the number? I
that is
forgot.
HB 950.
Thank you very much.
Let me see, who do I want? Delegate Allen, you can have the state highway vegetation, or you can do the Maryland forest education.
I'll do the forest education.
Okay,
What number is that? I'm sorry.
it is HB 289. And I will do 1084. Did I get them all?
Madam Chair, you didn't get
It's 1006. It was a good 1006. There's no amendments on it though. I can who would like that. I know Teresa said no. Jackie, would you be interested? Delegate Addison, would you be interested?
What bill is that?
HB 1006. That is the State Highway Administration Vegetation Management. You can say no, it's okay.
Can I get another one next week or the next time?
Absolutely. You sure can. I'll take that one on. Okay. No, it's okay. That's fair. Look, I can get you to do something that you be like, or you can be like, hook me up next time. That's exactly, that's not a problem. Thank you so much. I will work with Kristen and Patrick to make sure Delegate Baker. Yes, sir.
Of all the bills that we moved today, could you go over the numbers on the bills that we've moved to committee?
I sure can. HB 503.
Okay.
HB 950.
Okay.
HB 96. No, that's unfavorable. HB 1006.
Okay.
HB 289.
Okay.
HB 1084 and HB 983.
Okay, that's all I needed. Thank you.
So glad to help. Any other questions? All right, look out for a couple of meetings for the rest of the week. Thank you all so much. This ends the subcommittee hearing of Natural Resources, Agriculture, and Open Spaces.